Rivers can often feel like an afterthought when world building. Nothing more than some squiggly lines on the map. But rivers are, in fact, world building gold. Whether it's resources or defence, as natural borders for travel and industry, where you put your rivers and how the people in your world use them can really elevate your world building to the next step. I'm Janet from World Anvil, and in this episode of World Building Inspiration, we're talking rivers and how those squiggly lines on your map can really alter your world building completely. I know it sounds silly and also obvious, but rivers as a water source are really important. People, but also animals and plants, need water to survive, and rain is often too sparse and irregular to support heavy agriculture. The Nile in Egypt is a great real-world inspiration for this, and it was paramount in the early stages of the Egyptian civilization. Most settlements were along the river, so that people could drink, irrigate their farms, and care for their animals. In fact, the rivers were so important to these cultures that they created deities in their religion to represent the water and the rivers. They even had religious festivals surrounding them. So consider placing some of your most important settlements along a river, especially if they need water to survive, which most likely they will. There's also some great room for conflict here when we're talking about water use and rivers. For example, what if a rival nation blocks the river upstream, creating a dam and shutting water off to a large part of the country? Unless your world has already invented planes, cars, spaceships, or other quick travel, looking at you, Skyrim, they're most likely still using boats. Rivers are often the fastest way to travel in low-tech worlds, not just for people, but also for goods and trade. And settlements with a navigable connection to the ocean have an important advantage, a gateway for international trade. Take Rome, for example. Rome wasn't a coastal city during the Roman Empire, but it was connected to the sea through the Tiber River. Being located inland defended it from sea raiders, pirates, while still providing the city with access to international travel and trade, the best of both worlds. And if a river is navigable, that means you can sail down it, you can include two interesting conflicts. One is taxes. The Tower of London, for example, is situated so close to the River Thames for exactly this reason. It taxed river travel from the 11th century. If your country controls a river used for travel, it will probably tax revenue from any traffic that sails its waters. The other interesting travel-related river conflict is river pirates! Okay, yeah, I'm a bit obsessed with river pirates, but they can add a really cool dimension to river travel in both RPGs and novels, and it's a great way to mix things up. When two countries want a border, it's easy to choose a natural border, instead of, manually building a wall. Sure, the Roman Empire used the Danube and the Rhine rivers as part of borders, but there are great modern examples of countries doing this too. If you look at the map and see a squiggly line as a border, it's probably a natural one. For example, the border between Germany and France, part of it is based on the Rhine River. An interesting conflict to consider here is what happens when the river migrates. I know this sounds crazy, but this doesn't just happen over a long period of time. It can happen very quickly. Do the country's borders move? Is one country technically invading another at that point? There's so much room for interesting conflict and story. If you're building a defensive location, consider building it by a river. It's especially effective if you're surrounded by one. There's a reason castles have moats after all. A great real-world example of this is the medieval city of Durham in the UK. It's surrounded on three sides by a loop made in the river, which makes it incredibly defensible. After all, it's hard to attack someone from across a river. You know that if you played Civilization. You can also flip this idea on its head though. Because river crossings are places of extreme tactical importance, if you're moving an army and such, then having a fort that defends your river crossing can make or break a military campaign. Stirling Castle in Scotland is a fantastic example of this. For ages, it guarded the only viable crossing of the River Firth in the medieval period, all the way into the 18th century. And in fact, it was said that he who holds Stirling holds the North. Now you know what inspired George R.R. Martin's Winterfell Castle in Game of Thrones. And after all that, don't forget that rivers provide resources too. Of course, there are the obvious ones like drinking water, fish, waterfowl, reeds, and organic compounds. These are all very important if you like to eat food and drink and water your crops and make baskets and thatching and all that kind of fun stuff. But rivers are also really important sources of clay and sand and gravel, not to mention metal deposits, which are important for building and industry. And of course, from water wheels generating power to water-intensive activities like dyeing and tanneries, rivers are excellent places to grow the industrial enterprises of your cultures and cities too. All these resources and energy is going to help your settlements and cultures not just survive, but thrive. And this adds another layer of conflict to your world. If rivers are so rich with resources, countries will be fighting over them. And that's gonna make a really cool story or campaign. So I hope this video has helped you expand your world building repertoire, and you'll take a little extra consideration when placing those squiggly lines on your map. Now for a little thought exercise. Tell me about an important river in your world setting and why it's important. Throw it down in the comments below. If this video has helped inspire you, please throw us a like. It helps us out so much. And don't forget to subscribe if you're new. We're always releasing world building tips and inspiration videos to keep your brain positively flowing with ideas. See what I did there? Well, enough terrible puns. All right, guys, it's time to grab your hammer and go world build.